Okay, let's start with the lab. Open a terminal window and become root. Remember, root password is Solaris1. We will start with the storage layer. And first, we will create a separate file system for our zones. It will be mounted at /zones, and it will be created in our root pool, rpool/zones. Second, we will create a separate file system to store our database files, and it will be called MyData. We will use it later in our database layer. And basically that's all for our storage layer. We continue with the web layer. First, check if you have two network interfaces available. Second, we will create an internal virtual switch. It will be called vSwitch0. We use dladm command create either tab. Okay. Second, we will create a separate VNIC, which we are going to use with our web layer zone. It will be connected to our virtual switch, and it will be called webint0 as soon as we are going to use it for our internal communications. And now let's configure our web zone. It will be called, obviously, web zone, and then we will use our standard commands to create web zone configuration, to set its zone path where we are going to store the zone's files, and then we add two network interfaces. First network interface will be used for our outside connections, and we will use our net1 interface. And second network interface will be used for our internal communications, and we will use webint0 interface, which we just created and connected to our virtual switch. Okay, we are done with our zone configuration. Next, we have to create the zone's profile. To do that, we use sysconfig command, and we use this XML file, which we're going to store in our home directory. Let's go step by step. Use F2 to switch from screen to screen. Computer name will be WebZone, and we will use network configuration none. We will configure our network after we installed and boot the zone. This is time zone configuration, and use your specific time zone. Root password will be Solaris1, and your username will be zone user or Z user as a username, and password is Oracle1. Of course, you can choose your favorite passwords, but just for consistency's sake, better to use the provided passwords and usernames. And now we are ready to install the zone. Use zone ADM command and use this special parameter to tell the zone ADM command that we are going to use this web zone profile. And now you have to wait for a little while, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on the speed of your computer and on your network connection. I will shorten this time in this video, but prepare to wait for several minutes while zone is being installed. Okay, the zone is installed now. Let's check it using zoneadm list command. And now we can boot the zone. Again, use zoneadm boot command. And wait until you get the command prompt. And then again, you can check the status of the zone using zoneadm list command. Then use zlogin command to log in into the zone's console. And in that case, you will have to wait for a while until all the services are started in the zone. This is necessary during the first boot. Then press enter a couple of times until you see this console login prompt. Use your zuser login name and Oracle One password, and then use your root password, which is Solaris1, to become root. And now, while within the zone, let's check what we've got from the network perspective. We don't have any IP interfaces, but we do have 3 data links. And we start with creating IP stack for our outside network. And we're going to use net1 data link for that. And for this data link, we will accept our IP address from our DHCP server, which is most likely your local home network wireless router or something similar. And now you see that we have our IP address assigned to net1 data link. But for some reason, network is unreachable. We can't ping our local router. We can check our routing rules, but nothing suspicious is there. The answer is simple. Because of Solaris secure by default profile, when we create a network interface, Solaris automatically creates firewall rules, which basically block all the network communications through this interface. For this lab, we will just disable our firewall rules, our IP filter service, but in your real-life situations, probably you have to create a reasonable set of rules for your firewall. And now, as you can see, our router is available, and we can even ping the outside network, which is the IP address of Google DNS server. But for some reason, we can't ping oracle.com. The answer is that we haven't configured our DNS server. And to configure a DNS server, now in Solaris 11, it is not enough just to edit your etc result.conf file. Now we have to configure DNS service by using service configuration commands instead of editing files. The reason for that is simple. We want services configurations to be part of services themselves, not to be stored in separate files somewhere in our file system. That's why we have included services configurations into services and make them part of the services themselves. Yes, it looks cryptic on the first sight, but trust me, it will help you to prevent from some human-made mistakes. So let's configure our DNS servers and our name services switch service, and then restart DNS client service to make sure that we can access oracle.com, because we needed to install a couple of packages in our web zone. Okay, oracle.com is available, and that means we are done with our outside communications. Let's configure our internal communications. For our internal communications, we will use WebInt 0 interface, which we have created as a VNIC, and we connected it to our internal virtual switch. First, we create an IP stack on top of this, and then we assign our internal VirtualBox IP address to this data link. It will be 10.0.3.10, and we assign it to our internal WebInt 0 interface. Let's check it. Yes, we do have two IP addresses, one for the outside communications and another for our internal communications. Now, to finish with the networking part, let's write down these IP addresses and host names to our etc hosts file, which we will use when configuring our WordPress application. And check it, and we are done with the networking part in the web zone. And now we're ready to install packages into our web zone. Instead of installing separate packages, we will install a collection which is called AMP, which stands for Apache MySQL PHP. And again, we have to wait a little bit until we have downloaded all the packages and installed them into WebZone. Now check if you have all the necessary packages installed. Use package list command and check if you have Apache and PHP and MySQL installed. Okay, so far so good with packages, and now we want to enable a web server, and it's going to be as simple as this: SVC ADM enable Apache 22. Check if it's online, and then you can check using your web browser from your global zone. Open the Firefox web browser and enter your IP address which you have received from your DHCP server. In my case, it's 192.168.1.114. In your case, it might be something else. And yes, it works. That means we can access our web zone from our global zone, and we can access its web server. Yes, we are done with the web zone, and we are ready to continue with the next layer. Just don't forget to stop your web zone using ZoneADM halt command.